Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Adam, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Young Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Robinson, David Wayne Studio, say that again, David Wayne Foster, Daz Studio 68, Edwin Johnson, Owen Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin', Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Maria Neelands, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Rob H, Skeptic936, Steve ALM, I think is a new patron, shout out to you Steve, Texas Mike, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Tom Hawkins, Unbelievable Productions and Windriders. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a few people in both Discord and G+, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Hey Righteous.
Hey.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello John and Monster without a something.
Matt.
Without her name. It's Migo. Got a new kitty and he's so energetic, he's like all over the place.
Yeah.
He's still young.
You gotta watch it. They like to litter.
What's that?
But you gotta watch it. They like to litter.
Is that like supposed to be a pun or something?
What do you mean supposed to be? You're just so slow. You're testing my puns. Thanks, Righteous.
I noticed we got like 3 little plants, potted plants. And he likes to like sometimes just like dig some of the dirt out around.
They're fun to watch.
Good morning.
Hi Neil.
Good morning, Neil.
Glad to see everybody still alive.
Why wouldn't we
course.
be? Alrighty then.
Did you ask me something? I didn't hear you.
Ezeko, don't worry. Busy weekend this weekend with Ballbusters.
Yeah, you
I was there for
stuck
that
around
after
for
show.
quite a
That
while.
was great.
I had 3 people all at once. Whoever. Neil first. Go ahead.
I was there for the whole thing. That was great. The after show was amazing. I hope somebody recorded it.
Yeah, I published it.
Really?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, on the second channel.
Yeah, I have them both. I didn't look. I gotta look.
Can't miss it. It's got a picture of a woman with a... Now, I normally only use a quarter of the screen, so the output resolution for this stream is 1080, which is a quarter of a 4K screen. So I've got all sorts of other crap all over my screen. And for that particular stream, I just cleared off everything off the screen and then just captured the whole screen. And what the screen actually is a woman in a gas mask, just by coincidence. And I mean, literally, it is just a coincidence. That just happens to be the best setup for me to be able to monitor an extra line. So the audio feed from this reactive screen happens to give me a load of bars at the bottom of the screen, so I can just monitor an extra line. Just useful. But I went through all sorts of sound reactive screens to try and find one that just had the bars out of view from what I broadcast, which is what I used it for. But like I say, when we were discussing Corona, quite handy to have a woman in a gas mask as the backdrop, right?
I see it now. Yeah, I didn't see that yesterday. I would have watched it. Something to look forward to later.
So what time did you go to sleep that night?
Me? I didn't sleep any at all over the weekend, really. Got like an hour or so here and there, just non-stop doing stuff. So all of Saturday night I was editing out the crap songs that I hated from Ballbusters. That was fun. 2 or 3 attempts on YouTube, only to then import it into my iPad to edit it manually and then render it and then upload it. And that just took hours and hours and hours.
Speaking of iPad, how do you like it?
Good. It's good. Same as the old iPad in terms of when I first got the old iPad, it was like this one. It worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's very good. It does everything.
This one you can put two screens, right? The old one you can on one screen.
Say again.
You can pinch and put 2 screens here, right? And the old one was only 1 screen ability.
No, I could do that on the old one. So the old one was also an iPad Pro. The main fault was that it was knackered. It was just literally worn out. I'd worn it out using it daily. 13 or 14 hours a day was what the screen timer on Apple, they have this like screen timer. It tells you on a monthly basis or weekly, I forget, how long you've spent in front of it. And it's like, you are spending 14 hours a day in front of it. And you're like, yeah, I am, yeah. So it just got worn out.
Sleep is overrated anyway.
Yeah, kind of. I'm a bit of an
Not for
insomniac
me.
anyway, so not getting a great deal of sleep isn't a shock to my system, but by the same token, I still do need sleep. Over the weekend, I didn't get any.
I work on the farm. Sleep is not overrated. Yeah, I had to go to work on Ballbusters, so I'll have to go listen to the after show. I had to get off after a couple of hours.
A long show. Like 4.5 hours. It's a long
Wow.
show.
So that's really 2 Ballbusters.
Yeah. I saw it as a useful opportunity. I condemn anybody talking about the subject on this show, and I will continue to do so. But by the same token, it wasn't Ballbusters, that was out of the way. It was an after show. It's like, well, this isn't a flat Earth debate. This isn't a Ballbusters. This is a Ballbusters after show. So why not? I don't often, or probably won't again, express my views on the current situation, whereas in that particular show I did. So I'll get it all out at once, and then put it on the second channel, and then I'm done with it. I can move on.
It's not like after your 1 hour show, people don't have 23 hours to go find out something about it since everybody else is talking about it, right?
Right.
Nice to have the hour just on flat Earth, actually.
Give me liberty or give me death.
What
Lovely.
the hell is that?
I think it sounded like, I don't know, like a line from
1984?
1984.
You should have named it The Spanking of Mark Taylor.
It wasn't designed to be a spanking of Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor just represents normies. That's, I don't want it to come across like I've got anything against. I haven't got anything against Mark Taylor at all. In fact, I don't even know the guy. I don't care for him or discare for him in any way, shape, or form. But he was a useful tool to
When
demonstrate.
somebody says I'm home counting my money, that really starts to annoy me. So I got issues with that dude.
Oh, right, when he started bragging about how much coin he's got.
Correct.
Yeah, I know how that gets other people's goat. It doesn't fuss me particularly, other than it being completely off subject, which is the only thing that pissed me off about him bringing up how much money he earns. Like, I don't care how much money. It doesn't matter if you're a bazillionaire or I've said this on the debate a few times. If somebody comes forth with a really coherent argument that's poignant, that's going to leave us scratching our heads. It's not going to leave us questioning the guy's former business practices. Do you know what I mean? It's just irrelevant. Now, with Mark Taylor, I used a juxtaposition between him being in the papers versus the papers lying. In other words, completely on topic. Not to have a dig, to highlight the point.
I know exactly what you would do. Seems like he didn't.
People who go on about how much money they earn tend to be quite insecure. That's true regardless of how much money you've got too. So I've met plenty of super, super wealthy people who bark on about it because they are insecure. Because almost every level you go to in terms of wealth, there's somebody above you with more. Always. So the inferiority complex doesn't go away with some people. They want to say, look, I'm doing better. And better by what? Well, it's only by a gauge of standards when you're in a room with people. So he's basically saying, I do better than you do. It's like, well, there are more gauges in life than finance. You know, that's one measure that only some people apply. Obviously, everyone requires a certain amount of money. By the same token, I don't necessarily gauge how well I'm doing on how much money I've got. Quite the contrary. I've gone through jobs where I've earned a shitload of money, and then I've given up that way of working to have more time. In other words, being time rich to me was far, far better than being cash rich and having zero time. So it might sound like wonderful me talking about flying out to China and various other places around the world when I was a rep. I had zero time. None. Loads of money, but no time.
Maybe Mark Taylor didn't have as much money as he thought, but maybe he was just going to break open his piggy bank.
But who cares? It doesn't matter to the argument how rich he is. It doesn't mean he's more intelligent or his argument's better. In fact, his argument was just the rhetoric of the mainstream. And because he was, I'm going to give him credit, right? He was more useful than people might even give him credit for, because he was. At one point, Alex said, "Oh, I'm the same as Mark. I'm just like Mark. I'm ill-informed." It's like, no, Mark's not ill-informed. He knows what's going on. He knows the stats. In fact, he was very well read, as far as I could tell. Yeah, it doesn't mean I agree with the rhetoric. Obviously, I stood in polar opposition to it. But the reason Mark was the one on the forefront of that conversation was because he did know what he was talking about.
Oh, you ruined a good pun. I was about to finish that piggy bank pun, but it's okay.
There wasn't any argy-bargy about made-up stats with Mark. He seemed to know the actual stats. He had a good handle on what was actually going on. His justification and reasonings and points around the contradictions doesn't make any difference to the fact that he did actually have a firm grip of what was going on in the mainstream media. Well, that was very, very useful. Short of it being very contradictory to pretty much shake his hand and say, thank you, Mark. I almost did exactly that. I'm like, you're useful to show my audience what your average normie is like. But most average normies wouldn't know half of what Mark did. Let's be honest. Most of them wouldn't have their clue about what is even in the mainstream media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I just find it poor taste when, a lot of people are struggling right now. I mean, a lot. I make a lot of money too when I'm working. When I'm not working, I'm not making a dime. And to sit there and boast that you're counting your coin, that's in poor taste to me.
Sure. I hadn't thought about it from that aspect, to be perfectly honest. I'm generally on the edge of poverty always, so don't give it much thought. But yes, obviously people who are in a better position are in a worse position now, obviously. And yeah, somebody highlighting, well, I'm doing all right. I'm doing really well, in fact. It's like, well, screw you, mate. Everyone else is being locked down and they're potentially losing their business, including somebody who was on the panel. But there we go. Very poor taste, you're right.
Yeah, don't put your trust in riches.
Yeah, if you're testing yourself on how much fiat you have, then fine. That's some people's measure, and more power to them. But by the same token, it wasn't relevant to the subject matter.
Well, yeah, but they have to change it because they're losing the argument. They can't come with a good rebuttal, so they have to knock you down while lifting themselves up with a what do you call it? A cute remark, at least in their mind. Right?
As
I
a-
mean, it's a different form of an ad hom without attacking the person. I mean, without answering the question and attacking the person, the ad hom as we know it. This is more of a, well, look at me, I'm this, so I'm wasting my time talking to you kind of a situation they're trying to create.
Like I say, I don't hold that much weight in that regard against Mark. If other people found it in poor taste, then obviously I can only echo their sentiments. But by the token of the discussion, it didn't really matter, as far as I'm concerned. A moot minor point that was moved past pretty quickly in a very, very long discussion.
It's going to pass quickly because Howard Hughes had more money than Mark Taylor, and he's dead. Everyone's going to have the same life. You're born, you live, you die. So what you do in between, if you want to brag about your coins, well, have at it, I guess.
Right. My wife says you can always earn more money. The amount of time you have is definitely finite.
Yep. Time is more important than money, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I made that choice many, many years ago and just sort of weighed it up. What's more important to me? You know, now I still see life as pretty sweet. I have good fun dancing with my kids, those sorts of things. Most people are like, so what? You know, I could dance with my kids any day. It's like, well, could you when you're at your office? Probably not.
Well, they can't because they've grown up already, and they didn't have the time when they were small because they were working too much.
Yeah, my folks say that to me all the time. Oh, one of our only regrets is that we spent so much time working when you were growing up. Like, if that's one of your only regrets, you think, well, I'd like to not have the same regret.
That's right.
Proverbs, right? Riches are a high wall of conceit.
Say that again.
In the Proverbs, it says riches are a high wall of conceit.
A high wall of conceit.
Yes.
Okay.
Self. It's all about self and self-adulation, lifting yourself above everything else, and you're using your riches to do it. So you're very conceited instead of trusting in God and having a behavior that matches a humble person. You're very conceited. It's the contrast, I think.
I got a really distorted view of money as I was growing up because of one misquote by my mother. So she told me that money was the root of all evil. She told me it was biblical.
No, it's the love of money.
Let me get to the end of my story. So I grew up under the understanding that money was the root of all evil. That was what I understood. That's what I was taught. And then I told this to my grandmother, deeply religious woman, and explained this to her. She was probably about 99 years old at the time. And I explained to her, and I was like, oh, no, I don't care that much about money. And I was like, it's the root of all evil. She says, what are you talking about? I was like, that's what my mother explained to me. She said, no, the love of money is the root of all evil. I'm like, really? Oh, okay. Well, I almost despise it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they get it wrong in the Pink Floyd song as well. The song Money. They don't say the love. They just say money is the root of all evil today. Everybody misses the love part.
Right. Like in Simpsons, great quote from Monty Burns. He walks into a room that's full of gold coins and jewellery and riches. And he looks at it, walks out with Smithers, and he says, Smithers, I'd trade it all for just a little bit more.
Always a little bit more. Yeah, it's a tool. That's all it is. And it's either going to own you or you're going to own it. It can't be your God, as many people have made money to be.
yeah, there are certain downsides to going for a time-rich lifestyle. One of which is that I found after having 2 kids that you then end up with a bit of a space limitation. I'm in a small apartment, that's why.
Yeah. Well, look at the people in tiny houses. They've got 3, 4 kids, husband and wife, and 300 square feet of trailer.
Yeah, it's the same in the Far East. There was quite a few wealthy-ish customers that lived in various different parts of the Far East that had tiny accommodation in big cities, but their actual living quarters were tiny. So we ended up, I didn't have anything to do with designing it, but one of the pieces of equipment that got designed was teeny tiny but very, very expensive for exactly that application for people in tiny living quarters that couldn't dedicate huge amounts of space to a huge hi-fi. I'm in a tiny little living quarters and have dedicated a huge amount of space to a huge hi-fi. Why not?
You could put your projection screen across your window and light up a building, probably.
Yeah, that's basically what I do. I just shut out all light from the room by putting a projector down, and then there's no window.
Good morning.
Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning.
Morning, chocolate.
Timing, just about to start.
What's up, guys?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by Righteous Force, Chocolate Sane, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Any signs of a physical Earth curve edge, formerly known as the geometric horizon?
Not since 2019.
Yeah, geometric horizons are very 2019, aren't they? And 2018 and 2017. Any signs of any Earth curvature?
Not from Lake Mojave.
I reckon those two should be amalgamated, Chocolate. In light of what you've been saying this a few times, and I had cottoned on to exactly what you were saying, but you put it in a really concise way on Bullbusters. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, how the geometric horizon used to be called the curve, and how it's not called that anymore. And there's now the absolute certainty that we've never seen the geometric horizon, aka the curve. But yeah, I would feel like both questions are kind of the same, but you know,
they seemed kind of the same up until this point. But by the same token, the distinction is maybe how they've got away with it. Us realizing and discussing this verbally now is kind of an appreciation of that. There was a distinction being made between a physical demarcation point marked with an X in the model and what they actually discuss, which was how much is blocked of the target. That's what's being discussed when you talk about the calculator, right? The hidden value. So it's not really the prevailing part of the mathematics that you're being taken to. And what you're describing is things going over Earth curvature. But in reality, as you highlighted on Ballbusters and just a moment ago, that's Earth curve. What was formerly called Earth curve is the geometric horizon when you're quantifying it mathematically. The geometry giving you the physical geometric Earth curve edge, otherwise known as their heliocentric geometric horizon. Earth curve.
Yeah, I agree. And if that's the case, then the answer to the first question would kind of be then yes, because there is sign of that in the model, right?
Yeah.
It's just that when we apply that to reality, all of a sudden, no. So I guess you could say it like that. If you ask the first question, is there any sign of the physical Earth curve edge in the model? Yeah, sure. There's supposed to be one, right?
That's the
But
answer to the
now
second
when we
question.
get to questions, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the answer to the second question. So the answer to the second question, any signs of Earth curve? Well, yeah. The Earth curve's in the Earth curve model.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, when you take Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that stuff is flat, and he takes his hand and makes a flat sign out of it, and he's saying how high you have to get to see the curved chocolate, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Well, he did establish how high you have to go to see it. He says how high you are that you can't see it from.
Okay,
So
what was
you
that height?
can't see it from 128,000 feet.
Okay, so my point is, if you can't see it from 128,000 feet, how in the world is it supposed to be 1.22 miles in front of you at 1 foot observer height?
Aha.
Well, the answer to that
There goes the trick.
The answer to that is to work your way back in terms of what you're doing when you use the maths. First step, take geometric consideration when looking at a non-physical, non-geometric location called the horizon. From there, you can reify that non-physical, constantly moving position called the horizon into a physical geometric Earth curve edge obstruction when you look at things beyond the horizon. Now, when I say with an elongated tone beyond, it's because what you're seeing is something that has an angular size greater than the diffraction limit at that point, or atmospheric conditions that would bring that horizon closer, causing the same effect or entire obstruction in the case of things like fog. My point being that the geometric consideration is the first thing that you will do. Reify something into a physical position. Later to, once you've gone through all of that process, deny entirely that the horizon marked with an X and labelled horizon in the geometric model is anything we would ever see in reality, as some sort of excuse, upon reifying that physical geometric edge marked with an X and labelled horizon in their model into the horizon we actually see.
Well, my point, and maybe I didn't say it right, is Neil deGrasse Tyson is agreeing with us that the radius of the Earth cannot be 3,959 miles.
Well, his statement's false based on their geometry. No, Mr. Tyson, according to your own rhetoric, we can measure Earth curve from the ground. So him saying that we can't see Earth curve from 120,000 feet when pointing out Felix Baumgartner's jump with fisheye lenses, again, our argument used as some sort of defence by Neil deGrasse Tyson, but also making both parties, Flat Earth and Globe Earth, reify the horizon into an edge. He's holding a ball and describing a geometric horizon on the ball. Where would you see the edge of the ball? That would be a geometric horizon. And then when he talks about going up to the heights that Felix Baumgartner went up to, he's saying you won't see the curve of the Earth at 120,000 feet, meaning you won't see the geometric horizon bend, allowing both parties to simultaneously beg the question that the horizon is a physical geometric Earth curve obstruction, and how much it would be perceived to be bending on one axis when you rise in altitude. It still requires the physicality that he's got by implication when he holds a globe-shaped beach ball. That globe-shaped beach ball is the thing that tells the audience we're talking about the edge of the beach ball and how much you can see and how much it obscures, or in this instance, how much it bends at altitude. Because it's a physical geometric Earth curve edge obstruction that he's holding when he holds a ball. He's saying the Earth is this ball. Therefore, the edge of the horizon is the same as the edge of this ball when it blocks things, or you see it curving. But you won't if you're only a millimetre above it. Well, you will. You've got maths to show us just how much we can measure that. But the Earth curve in the maths that says how much we can measure it simultaneously tells us that the horizon cannot ever be visible as a geometric obstruction. That's a thought experiment.
Yeah, exactly. So he's holding a beach ball, just like if I held the basketball, and you could be a foot away from me, or in his case, the audience member, maybe 30 feet in front of him, sitting in a chair as he's talking. We see the shape of the ball. We could see the curvature on the ball. I could see it in the model in his hand, that globe-shaped beach ball, but he's telling me I could go up and I can't see it. But his math holds him to it. At 1 foot, it's got to be 1.22 miles. So he's contradicting himself at the same time.
Yeah, even on the axis that he's claiming you wouldn't see bend, in the advanced parts of the calculations for the globe geometry, yeah, you should see it bend. Again, at ground level. With the composite image, wow, that's a big super chat. Shout out to Retro Bill. Just a little something to get your work off to a jolly start. Cheers to all on the panel as well. Thank you very much indeed for a $100 super chat, Retro Bill. Really do appreciate it. Yeah, he's wrong. In the advanced part of the calculator, you can calculate how much the horizon should bend. And given, albeit with a composite, so we had to stitch together a piece of videography into still images that you could pan across. They'll scroll by on the screen. If I actually had the screenshots rolling, it's been stuck on an image of the Isle of Man from Sandra. But yeah, eventually on these screenshots, you'll see the composite image that Ranty produced for the Isle of Man discussion. And that composite image, you should be able to calculate how much that axis, the horizon, Earth curve, formerly known geometric horizon, formerly known Earth curve, would bend from the ground. Not talking about huge amounts in the air. Woohoo! Arwen's here. Arwen had 500th show today.
Yes, I did. Hello, Nathan. Hello, guys.
Good to have you, Arwen.
Damn, you're at 500 shows? Huh.
Yeah.
Congrats, brother.
500 early bird shows, because I had a more flatter talk shows before that, of course.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, man.
I'll put you on
That's
screen.
awesome. Congrats,
Take a bow.
brother.
Take a bow. Put you on screen. Take a bow.
Take a bow.
500 shows. Woo, woo, woo. Well done.
Good job, Armin.
Yeah, serious dedication.
I don't think I talked about flat Earth, though, the entire show, except for the last moment. But,
Right, get out.
Oh, sorry.
That's Godzilla for the super chat. Let's see if I can bring it up on the other page. I struggle to read it on the other screen.
Oh, you got a lot of super chats today.
Yeah, well, I got one massive one from Retro Bill. Thank you very much, Retro Bill. For $100, at least read it right. He said, "Week, not work. Love you." It's because it was on the biggest screen. I'm sorry, Godzilla and Retro Bill. Just a little something to get your week off to a jolly start. Cheers to all on the panel as well, says Retro Bill. Thank you for correcting me, Godzilla, with a super chat. I'll read it again. We only got 2 questions.
Cheers right back. Shout out to you guys.
We've decided, while you're away, Arwin, to amalgamate the 2 housekeeping questions that get asked at the start of the show. And the reason I'll repeat, because it's worth repeating. So, any evidence of a physical geometric Earth curve edge, formerly known as the horizon, in their geometric model, and then followed by any signs of Earth curvature of any description. Well, on Ballbusters, Chocolate was really concise to point out that Earth curve is the geometric horizon. That's the assertion. If you go up in height, you're talking about Earth curve when you talk about how much the horizon bends. When you're at the ground and you talk about things being obscured into the distance at the horizon, they're talking about things being obscured by Earth curve or boats going over Earth curve. So the geometric horizon is Earth curve. We've debunked it. We no longer have a geometric horizon, but there's no point asking for any signs of Earth curve because the answer to that question is yes in the geometric now debunked model only.
You might want to rephrase that first question, though, because the way you asked it is there any signs of all of that in their model? And then I'd say, yeah, in their model, it's all there. But if you say any of that in the real world, like in their model, and then that would not be so easy
Yeah,
to take.
yeah, that's kind of like what I said. What the first question would be, is there any sign of it? And it will be, yeah, in the model, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
but when we get to question number 2, is there actual Earth curve? Then it will be no.
Okay, so that's supposed to be like that. I mean,
Well, we used to answer the first question with no, right? Because we used to apply that to the Earth. But the answer is yes, because it is required in the model. It's in the model. There's an X at a place that's supposed to be a physical location, right? So yeah, there is a sign of it in the model, or in their maths, right? In the geometry. But when we apply that to Earth, it's not there.
I'm going to do a quick plug, as he's asked me to, with the super chat. So, subscribe today to Good Servant, who's releasing videos. And his latest video, I'm going to put a link to in the chat. So you can go and check him out. Check out his new video. There it is. So subscribe today to Good Servant. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat.
I'd like to address the refraction claim.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a modus ponens, but light bending or light changing angles is refraction. So if the horizon is refracted, we should observe changing dip angles to the horizon. We don't observe that, so the horizon cannot be refracted.
No, we do. The horizon changes its position, doesn't it? The whole point is we have varying dip angles. So if you've got a varying dip angle because of constant refraction, how are you going to derive radius from it? In other words, the Al-Biruni method, you're drawing a triangle basically from your point at the top of the mountain to the horizon. But if that's moving around, you're not measuring a physical geometric location to derive a radius. That's the point. But let me just correct you slightly, just so you rewired better, without sounding rude. If you haven't got a straight line to the horizon, then you can't do geometry. So their argument is to say that the light has reached us and been deviated from straight. Well, geometry requires a straight line between the point that you're measuring, which would be the tangent point, the edge of their curve they claim, and you as the observer inside profile. Well, you're going to draw a straight line between the two. The line is called a tangent. That straight line. Well, every time they argue because they're idiots, well, it's refracted. Oh, right, so not geometric then. Now, they're idiots. The best one was the one that was the most pompous and proud about this fact, AB Science, who went out of his way to declare how we were all idiots, while simultaneously sacrificing his own geometric certitude of a sphere Earth by saying that we don't have any straight lines to it, and then drawing donkey dick geometry for me to use constantly over and over again in the little clips I use. A straight line we haven't got, and a bent donkey dick line to a different position. You know what I mean? In other words, you don't have geometry then. You don't have a straight line between this fake point that moves throughout the day. So if it's refracted, it's not geometric. We move on with housekeeping. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
axis. Where's this axis supposed to be?
Yeah, might need an axis first.
Yeah, we are definitely going to be needing an axis. I'm pretty sure that
celestial axis.
2 weeks from now, the next Ballbusters, we'll be covering the top 3. If you subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1980, you might have kept up with the top 3 that I did. I'm pretty sure Quantum Eraser's top 3 will be the same as my top 3. So we'll see. But I haven't actually discussed it with him. We'll find out when I do next. But yeah, check it out. That's going to be the next Ballbusters. So I don't know if he's keeping that under wraps, if he's changed his order to mine. So I won't necessarily go through the order of it because it might be subtly different. But nevertheless, top 3 globe killers.
No, I'm pretty sure they're the same.
Okay, I will then. So axial rotation is one of the proofs that we're not on a spinning space ball flying through a vacuum. And axial rotation is to imply that we have a spinning Earth. It's simple as that. If we have a spinning Earth, this is claimed to be proven out by Coriolis effect. And even the layman amongst the audience members will appreciate that the words Coriolis effect conjure the image of globe Earth proof, even though in reality it's a very simple principle. If you're on a spinning roundabout and you throw a ball above you, you're holding a ball on a spinning roundabout, you throw it up, it'll fly away behind you. Well, it seems like it's going in a curved path when it flies away behind you from your vantage point because you're spinning, even though in reality it's just gone up and down. Yeah, it might have gone a little bit left or a little bit right depending on how you threw it, but ultimately speaking it's not following a curved trajectory, it's just going straight. But it seems to curve if you're on a roundabout spinning underneath it because you're spinning underneath it. Well, that principle's applied to a sphere Earth to claim there's a proof of spinning ball Earth. We see a Coriolis deviation, according to them, on a spinning ball Earth. In reality, we don't see a deviation of any description. If you threw a ball above your head and you were just standing on the ground, you should see a Coriolis effect, albeit very slight. Which is why because it's supposed to be slight with things like balls and bullets, because they're only in the air for a couple of seconds, that's where they lie and say that they do have Coriolis deviation. In reality, anything that leaves a spinning reference frame, like the ball leaves the roundabout when you throw it in the air, an aeroplane, helicopter or drone would be much more affected by this claimed deviation. In other words, you'd see the plane curving from the ground, like you saw the ball curving. Now that effect is a not actual effect, it's not really curving. The plane would only seem to curve from the ground because you're watching a plane from a spinning surface, i.e. a claim to be spinning Earth. The problem is that if the Earth's spinning underneath the aeroplane, then the continent it's travelling to is coming towards it, and the flight times would be massively reduced when travelling west. And you'd be fighting against Earth turn when travelling east. In other words, if there's a Coriolis effect, then there's a Coriolis effect. The fact that we do not observe any in things with the most prolonged hang time demonstrates that there's absolutely unequivocally no Coriolis deviation observable from the ground, because the Earth is not rotating underneath drones, helicopters, aeroplanes, or in fact anything that leaves the ground. There must be a deviation, though, if the Earth was turning. That would be Coriolis deviation observable from the ground, or the Earth rotating underneath an aeroplane, and your continent you're travelling to coming towards you a lot quicker when travelling west. That doesn't happen because the Earth is not rotating. So this will get far more detailed explanations in terms of a concise explanation of what the Coriolis effect is, the 5-point exploding globe tard trick, which is to say, establish with the globe tard exactly what Coriolis effect actually is, and then move on to what's causing things to seem like they're travelling in a curved path, even though they're travelling straight, and that cause is Earth rotating underneath in their paradigm. All you then do is demonstrate how Earth is not rotating underneath an aeroplane, and give an example. For example, Charlotte, North Carolina to LA. If you were travelling on a plane with the Earth rotating underneath, and you're standing watching that flight seem to curve because Earth's turning underneath it, not that it would, it's on the same latitude, but it doesn't matter, that's a deviation from the point. If you're on that flight, it would take an hour and a half when you get to LA, because LA's come towards you. The ground's turning when you left it, causing the Coriolis deviation observable from the ground. But that is the argument, not Coriolis effect. Once you establish what Coriolis actually is, something seeming to deviate because you're rotating underneath it, once you've got that established, you've got it established firmly in the principle that Earth should be rotating underneath things, like planes and helicopters and drones, and it doesn't. So establish what Coriolis effect is, deviation from the ground, things seeming to curve because Earth's turning underneath them, and then just show that things aren't turning underneath Earth. So that'll go, like I say, that'll be 2 weeks from now on Ballbusters, a little under 2 weeks from now. We move on.
But isn't that...
Go on.
Before you do, as you're saying all this, I'm thinking about the emperor's example you gave, where he's naked, but he thinks he's got this invisible, wonderful magic thread, that he's wearing some kind of jacket or kingly outfit. Everyone's under this spell that we're spinning, and it's been taught to them since, kindergarten, and you see a globe all the time. So when we're talking to normies, not trolls, but normies, it's amazing how their eyes hit the top of their head when you bring up some of the things you just did. And it's just perspective for so many things, like, the horizon and how far you could see one day and then the next day you can't see as far. That doesn't prove the edge of the ball Earth. That just means that day you saw a little further, and another day because of fog you see a little less. So the perspective argument is beautiful. This argument with Coriolis is beautiful. And it's pride. People's pride is so immense when you bring this simple fact. You just explained it like a kid would understand it. And then they say, no way, I can't. Don't tell me the Earth isn't spinning. It has to be because I believe it. Now, they can't prove it, and you just killed it with your explanation. But then pride kicks in the normie that I've experienced with the normies who still resist the argument that I give them. And it's like they're gone. They think it's spinning like the emperor thinks he's got clothes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't forget the best part, though, is that the Coriolis effect is supposed to actually exist, Earth-based, right? It's supposed to exist. That's supposed to be one of their proofs. But then when you ask them, why don't we see this? They give you reasonings as to why we don't see this effect that is supposed to actually exist and we're supposed to be able to see. And they tell us reasons why we can't see it. Well, isn't that supposed to be your argument? Why would you argue that you can't see it?
Well, the proof is just like the geometric horizon marked with an X. It's there, you can't see it. Coriolis, we're spinning, but you can't see it. All their proofs you can't see. So how's it?
Yeah. There's a pattern with that, huh?
Yes, there is a pattern. You're right. And the only tactic, once you've got to the root of what the actual problem for their paradigm is, the glaring contradiction in both cases, that would be that it's claimed Earth curve is blocking boats and curving at altitude, while simultaneously we're told we'll never see a geometric horizon with a Jedi hand wave. And the same principle applies to Coriolis. We're told the proof of Earth spinning is this Coriolis deviation. Things rotate, and when you leave them, from your vantage point, the thing that's left seems to curve because it's travelling straight and you're travelling underneath it. So you end up with a perceived curved path of something. That's Coriolis deviation. And Earth's got that. Well, straight away, a lot of people glaze over just in the description of what Coriolis effect is. When you then apply the principle to Earth and say it's happening to a bullet, most people won't take the cognitive step to say if it's happening under that bullet or happening under that ball, as Neil deGrasse Tyson claimed, the football gets kicked, it deflects into the goal because Earth turns underneath. Well, if it's turning and the ball's deflecting and it seems like it's curving from the stand but is actually travelled straight when it left the ground, well then surely a plane will travel straight when it leaves the ground and Earth will turn underneath it. But that doesn't happen. But that's quite a few steps. So Coriolis is more convoluted than, hence it's at number 3. On the list. It's more convoluted, and they've managed to shroud it in bullshit with people who are uninitiated into the argument, or even understand what the argument is, or don't understand what Coriolis effect is, more importantly than anything. So as I say, in the next Ballbusters, the 5-point exploding globe tard trick will be explained in detail, which is to say, tie your opponent down to what Coriolis effect actually is. You've got something spinning underneath something else. Simple as that. The thing that's not spinning is the thing that's left the platform, i.e. a roundabout, and that's supposed to be Earth. So a plane is equivalent to a ball being thrown from your hand. It's left the roundabout. The plane leaves the Earth that's supposed to spin and doesn't have the Earth turned underneath it, because Earth isn't turning. So it gets fairly convoluted and long-winded to debunk Coriolis. Now, Earth curve, on the other hand, far more simplistic when you understand the Black Swan argument. We don't have a geometric horizon. Welcome to Flat Earth. Really quick argument, the Black Swan, once you understand it.
Nathan, before you keep going, can I add one more to this pattern that Chocolate and I are talking about?
Well, before you do, Cleary says, I bet you $2 you won't read this.
Good one.
He won, but I got the $2.
That's good, Cleary.
No, actually, you got 120.
120? You think Retro Bill needs another shout out for the $100 super chat? I don't mind. Retro Bill is constantly giving me super chats. He's really, really good. Thank you so much for all your support, Retro Bill. Worthy of another shout out, $100 super chat. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm just saying Google takes some of it, but that's okay. Let's not spoil it.
Arwen's rubbing his hands together going, the people who let me use their site and give me an audience take some money too.
Too bad you can't go to dinner, Nathan.
If you say it like that, it sounds really creepy.
All right. So the other one is the atmosphere and gas behavior. So we know that gas moves in all directions. And they'll say that the atmosphere, which is gas, more than one type, is moving with the Earth. Well, right there, it dies right there because you have north, east, south, and west winds. So how is it possible that the whole atmosphere is moving with the Earth on a westerly direction? So that's another one of those things that they say, but they can't prove, and the evidence proves otherwise, meaning you can always disprove their statement.
Without giving any hints away about what the top 3 might be, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
Nope.
No. Unless you want to count having gas in a container as having not gas, or having gas not in a container, then it could be possible.
I see. So if I was to show you a demonstration of gas pressure without a container inside a container, that could be a demonstration of gas pressure without a container, but just a container used to demonstrate gas pressure without a container. That sort of demo.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of ignores the question, though, doesn't it? How can you have gas pressure without a container? Doesn't imply that we want to see a container creating a space that doesn't have gas pressure without a container. That makes no sense because you've got a container. Another shout out to Retro Bill. Wow, it's just dropping loads of cash on me. Thank you very much. It is tough times, though. I'm definitely not going to say no. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Retro Bill. I have to read it on the small screen. I'm going to butcher this too because I can't see it as it's the last super chat. Just a little something extra to cover those pesky YouTube fees. Thanks, Arwen. I think your comment got me an extra super chat. Thank you, seriously, Retro Bill. Really do appreciate it. So before we get sidetracked, though, gas pressure without a container, people are getting a mini warm-up for the Ballbusters that's coming up next. So I'll plug this a lot because I like top 3 shows, especially when they're debunking heliocentrism. But yeah, so gas pressure without a container was on my list as number 2. I don't know where it'll sit in the list for Quantum Erasers list. I'm sure we'll discuss it. However, this was the former number 1, the best globe debunking there was prior to the Black Swan, which we've covered already in terms of the geometric horizon. That's the Black Swan argument, if anybody hadn't figured that out. But gas pressure without a container, former number 1, down 1 at number 2, is equally as good. If you crick your neck if you've got a window nearby and look at the sky for a moment, if you're an audience member, and ask yourself this question. If the sky was a vacuum, how am I breathing any gas? The gas I'm breathing would evacuate into that space. That's what gas does. Expands in all directions to fill the available volume it has available to fill. And if the sky is a vacuum, then that's an available volume for the gas to fill. And the gas would expand in all directions and fill that space. Not just quickly, instantaneously. So we'd all be here with no gas. But we do have gas, and the necessary antecedent is a container. Hence the question, how can you have gas pressure without a container, given that the globe Earth model has us as a sphere in a vacuum without any containment? Got little ships flying out to what are claimed to be rocks in the sky vacuum, also defying natural law. Nevertheless, we don't have a container in the heliocentric model, we're just gas clinging to this rock that's flying at absolutely astronomical speeds. But the gas doesn't fly off, it just holds here. And the rebuttal we get is gravity. Well, no, gravity's not overcoming entropy. And I'll use Mark Sargent's shortcut to explain this. If your first floor is a vacuum, and your ground floor is normal gas pressure, and there's a cork between the two, what is actually occurring when the cork is in place is the gas pressure is hitting the cork and bouncing off it. As soon as you remove the cork, there's nothing for the gas pressure to bounce off of, so it all goes through the hole, upwards, into the vacuum, and equalises. So the gas fills the space, regardless of the direction being upward. So the assertion that we have a non-force force that you can think of as a force called gravity, actually the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time, only existing in the reified idea of a man called Einstein, permeated amongst the masses through books and education, this non-force force that you can think of as a force bending of conceptual medium pseudo-Riemannian force space won't overcome entropy, which is a natural law. The gas will fill the space. If the sky was a vacuum, we would not be breathing, because the gas would fill the space. Now, why go through all this diatribe? Well, it's asserted the sky is a vacuum, called outer space. Irony of irony, they call it space. A space for the gas to fill? Yeah, they're just laughing at us. Well, all the photos that are claimed to prove Earth's sphericity from space are being taken from a second law of thermodynamics violation. You can't have gas pressure without a container. You can't fly a little ship through the gas we're breathing into a vacuum to take a picture of a sphere Earth. All of the pictures, all of the claims and the little shows, the little plays that they have on television about this region called space are all fake. Instantly made debunked by the second law of thermodynamics and gas law.
Hear, hear.
Not bad. 30 minutes, that was a proper little 3-step plan to debunking any notion of heliocentricity that you may have as an audience member. Not a bad start to a Monday.
Yeah, very good, I'd say. Plus, they made they made the stuff up as the years went by to fool us. They made a critical error about their non-force force, which is labeled gravity. And they got two types, Newtonian and Einsteinian, as you said. But the mistake is simple. The gravity, if it did exist in their model, which it doesn't, I just want to say that up front, they say it's stronger at ground level, right? Because the Earth's core is magnetic, and that's what's pulling the oceans and everybody towards it. Well, the higher you go, it's weaker. The closer you are to the ground, it's stronger. So right there, it's telling you that they should have, if they were smart, say that gravity is stronger further away than the Earth's surface, because they're trying to say this gravity that can't even keep the gas on the ground is keeping it next to this vacuum of space where it's weaker. So it doesn't make any sense even if you gave it to them.
Well, is there any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
So Nathan, do you believe that if you had one floor above another and a gap and a hole between them, the pressures would equalise in the first and second floor?
Yeah, it's called entropy.
Right, so you believe, let's say it straight. So if I have two floors, lower floor, and an upper
floor. It's a natural law. I don't believe this.
You believe the pressure will equalise, do you?
It's natural law. It's not a belief.
Right, so you believe that...
No. Third time. Repeat it again as a belief and I'll kick you out. I'll say it again for a third time. This is not a belief. If you interrupt me repeating it, I'll kick you out also. This is not a belief. This is a natural... Right, you've got to be removed. Bastard. Total bastard. No, this is not a belief. Yes, this is a natural law, a law of nature, applicable always. Not a belief. Now piss off. Interrupt me 3 sodding times declaring this as my belief. It's not. It's natural law. If the sky was a vacuum, natural law dictates that the gas would fill the space. Not my belief, sunshine. 3 times. Unbelievable bastard. Moving on. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
So there's a reason we ask for scientific evidence of gravity and any viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics. That's because people like Rumpus came along and told us that the whole body of science proved we were on a sphere, until we started to point out what science actually is, the establishment of cause and effect. Then it turns out that, according to these fundamentalist religious zealots who have a bull belief, that science, according to them, doesn't prove anything. Well, that's loosely translated into our pseudoscience formerly claimed to prove we stand on a sphere doesn't prove anything. Because science definitely proves things. It proves cause. That's the whole point. You wouldn't do it if you didn't have a point. Well, the point's to prove cause. Science does prove things. Pseudoscience used to assert we're on a sphere, however, that used to be claimed to prove we're on a sphere. That doesn't prove anything. That's pseudoscience. Hence, we ask for scientific theory based on scientific evidence, not colloquial theory based on bullshit, which is what we were being asserted as being science by people who'd hijacked that term, because we're intrinsically programmed to believe that scientific evidence is proof of things. So if you label a tyre test as science, suddenly people think it's proven that your Goodyear tyres are better than Firestone. No, not science. Definitely not establishing cause and effect with independent and dependent variables. But that's the kind of thing we used to have asserted here. The whole body of science proves we're on a sphere. No, the whole body of pseudoscience used to pretend we lived on a sphere till we debunked it.
I got a certain hostile witness who will sort of agree with us, who says, quote, in science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork. Quote, Michio Kaku.
Have you got the bromine demonstration for hand? Rumpus is still in the chat saying, so you believe that the pressure would equalise? Yeah, we can show a demonstration of it if you like, Rumpus.
Yeah,
We've got that bromine demonstration. I'll stick it up for Rumpus because he's spamming the chat saying the same thing. I don't allow spam in this chat, so I'll just time him out so he can learn not to spam my chat. Don't spam the same shit over and over again. Learn to type a new sentence, Rumpus. It's pathetic. Copy and paste. Sad. Same answer I gave you while you were here, you pathetic little man, and you interrupted. It's not a belief, it's a natural law. It's called the second law of thermodynamics. It's the entropy law. Look into it. Not my belief. That's why I removed you from this call. You're welcome back tomorrow.
Yeah, I love it. Good job there. It's interesting how
one of these
Neil
valves,
deGrasse Tyson.
some bromine,
Just one sec.
and in the other, I have a vacuum.
What in the
And if I
world?
open the tap between these two, you will see spontaneously the bromine rush from one to the other. Now that is the simplest way, the bromine rush from one to the other. Now that is the simplest change we can have, perhaps, because all that happens is a change in entropy.
As I say, second law of thermodynamics is the entropy law. If you have an available volume for a gas to fill, then the gas will fill it. That's what gas does. It expands in all directions to fill the available volume. As I say, it's called entropy. It's a natural law, not a belief. Let's move on.
It sounds like, from Rumpus's question, though, it sounds like he believes that would not happen.
Rumpus has never had
to me.
Rumpus has never had a flat tire.
Well, that's no problem. We have a housekeeping question to cover that. How can you have gas pressure without a container? We'd need a demonstration of that, as it's asserted that the Earth is a pressurised system without any containment, and that violates natural law by demonstration. Easy to demonstrate, it's natural law. It applies always. So we have these things called natural laws, applicable always, and a heliocentric model has an idea of gas pressure without containment in a region only visible from a place that we can't travel to and violates this very law. So therefore, we'd need to see that as an actual demonstration. We'd need you to violate that natural law, as per your model violating it. We're never going to get a demonstration of gas pressure without a container, because you can't have gas pressure without a container.
What I was going to say earlier was Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson and the rest of the people that are similar to them always are barking at the little people about science and how they've gone and studied and they know what they're talking about and science, and you know, you have to know it. And then when it comes to the simple questions, they have to now say science doesn't prove things. All the trolls, all the ballers. Well, why don't you listen to your high priest that say science? Like Neil deGrasse lately has a master class, and he's talking about science. Okay, let's talk about real science, not pseudoscience. And the minute you bring up all the failings of the globe model, all of a sudden science doesn't prove things. But the whole show is based on science proving things.
Anyone else got anything to add to gas pressure without a container, as this is a mini housekeeping show?
Nope.
Well, maybe the confusion for Rumpus is that he's not too sure whether or not the second law of thermodynamics applies to the Earth. And if he's maybe it's hard for him to remember. I posted a clip of that in Ballbusters just to remind him.
Right. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that gas doesn't really have weight, in the sense that weight is a relative density. What is it? Detraction, based on measuring something's relative density within the medium of air. So air does, you can't measure air within air. So that therefore air holds no weight, and thus you cannot even technically reason out that it's ejected by gravity, but like that.
The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
Oh, maybe that's why he was asking me about the belief that I held, because he's under the misapprehension that the second law of thermodynamics, which is a natural law derived in nature, doesn't apply to the Earth. That's probably why he thought I had a belief about that. When applied to his reification of a sphere model, he would have assumed that...
Well, we have you on record saying that. It's just...
Where have you got me on record saying that entropy doesn't apply to the Earth? I'd never say such a thing. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
Yeah, we're dealing with retards when it comes to Rumpus. He's going to talk through me constantly asserting that I've got a belief in something, when he asserts quite boldly that the second law of thermodynamics, a natural law, which I stated to him and he rumpused and talked through me 3 separate occasions, declaring belief. No, retard. You think this natural law derived in nature, applicable to nature, doesn't apply to the Earth? Yeah, that's why you think I've got a belief about it applying in demonstration, as shown with the little clip we had earlier demonstrating entropy, gas filling space. Yeah, that's a natural law. It definitely applies to the Earth, so Rumpus isn't really welcome or useful in this conversation. He hasn't got the vaguest clue what a natural law even is. He thinks that the second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
Yes, it does, you complete retard. So anybody who trusts in Rumpus and his opinion of these things and his expression that we've got beliefs, no, we're talking about actual, genuine laws of nature. He's got beliefs in reified X marks the spot's horizons. We, on the other hand, talk about natural law here. So hence he's not welcome when he's declaring, I've got a belief in a natural law. Not a belief, sunshine. Anyway, let's move on. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
No way. If X is the mark and they can't prove it, there is no R value.
Well, the radius is kind of up for grabs at this moment, so it might be slightly bigger or something.
Slightly.
You know?
According to the Black Swan image, it's out of the circumference of the Earth would be the same as the claimed, begging the question, orbital trajectory, if that's the right word, of the Moon around the Earth. That would be the circumference of Earth.
I think that plane flight from Charlotte might take longer then.
Am I wrong in that? Have I given that incorrectly? Does that value end up being the radius? Brian. Hello? Brian. Can you hear us?
What?
What? You're sanding something on a live show. Let's just remove him. What?
No, you're not wrong, Nathan. At 10 miles, at a 1 foot observer height, the radius of the Earth would go from this agreed upon by the ballers 33,959, it would have to be 264,000 miles the radius, and
The
the moon is
radius.
much closer.
So yeah. So the radius of Earth does become the begging the question orbital path. That's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, by 21,000 miles extra, because it's what 249,000 to the moon, they say, and this would be no, it's more than that. It's 264, so over 20 something thousand miles. It's so dumb.
Yeah, the Earth grows out to the size of where the moon currently is claimed to travel around us. Not that I'm in any way buying that bullshit either, but I'm just giving it in their mathematics just so people can visualize it. Obviously, most people are still wired in some sort of way to, picture these things in heliocentric terms. That said, most average Joes, I'll just drop this in, most average Joes don't actually appreciate how vast that distance is. If you were to describe to them how far out the moon was and, get them to draw it on a little diagram and say, right, draw a picture of the Earth, now draw a picture of the moon, roughly how far away you think it is in a rough scale. And they'd never get it right. They'd never get it anywhere near close. It's much, 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 much further than people anticipate. I remember seeing a YouTube channel once where they showed it with like a football and a golf ball, the golf ball being the moon and the football being the Earth. And they were like a considerable, more than 100 meters away from each other to get the scale right. They were a vast distance away from each other to show that scale. Jaron's done it a few times as well. Jaron's had his software with the heliocentric system in it on Jaronism, and he will show it to scale. And then, you'll see him clicking the mouse for ages and ages and ages to get out to a scale where it's a tiny dot, it's a single pixel on his screen to get the two in frame. And it obviously becomes a massive nightmare when you're trying to do it with the sun at those scales. But that's why I've tagged this onto the 2 questions, any evidence of the R value, and then I was going to move on to any evidence of the distance to the sun. Hopefully tie those things into there. Go on.
Can I have chocolate do the Mr. Sensible at best?
Well, at best, what you've done is disprove the radius of the Earth. At best, of course.
Okay,
but
so
along those lines, to go back to the quote that I read earlier, Nathan, I dropped. Somebody has a response to that quote that I read and feels like I misread it. I posted that in Ballbusters. Somebody
the
can
M.
read
Scott
it.
Peach thing?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You want to read that out for me? Because it's a little loud here, but
Okay.
I'm sure you'll be very interested.
Yes. What, by the way, does SMH mean? I have no idea.
Shaking my head.
Oh! Wow. That only took me like 10 years to get that. Anyway, shaking my head, you took the exact wrong meaning out of what Michio Kaku quote law. Out of that. Just think about it. He's saying no one in a field of physics actually uses a strict scientific method. You think that's him admitting that they're not doing science? That's absurd. He's saying that the scientific method isn't required to do science. It's petulant in the extreme to imagine that you guys on the panel who have never actually done anything that anyone would call science have a better grasp on how to define it than the people who are actually making progress and adding to humanity's knowledge base.
That would be M. Scott Veitch, lying son of an astronaut. So he's got a lot to lose in this debate because his father, who's overtly lied to him and the rest of the nation about travelling to a second law of thermodynamics violation known as the sky vacuum, also called outer space. He hasn't been to outer space, his father was a liar. Now his son defends the lie, saying that what people call science is the establishment of cause and effect. Science is the scientific method. Now, what he calls science is pseudoscience and lies in his instance, because he's parroting lies. He's got a little Quora section from him about how you can have gas pressure without a container because of gravity, something that definitely doesn't overcome entropy. It's a pseudo force, and not actual force, not forcing anything to do anything. But yet he's lying to people about it, and then defending the use of pseudoscience, things people call science. No, science is observing natural phenomena and trying to establish what caused it. That's science. It's very narrow. It's been hijacked because of its empirical nature. Science establishes cause through experimentation. It's empirical because you have a null. If A, then B. If A, not B. At the end of your experimentation, you validate or invalidate your hypothesis, making the method empirical. You either prove or disprove your assumed cause of the effect. Invalidating it if you get it wrong, validating it if you get it right. Empirical. Very useful for liars like M. Scott Veitch and his father to call their little trips into a fake place science. It's an outrage from liars. There's only a few people in this argument we can call liars. He's one of them. A liar. Now, what these liars do is they hijack science, an empirical method, and call trips in rockets science. No, they're not. But that's what they'll call them because they're lying overtly about the place they're travelling to. So they call their little trip to a fantasy place called space science. It isn't. It's pseudoscience. Overt lies in this man's case. Should we move on?
Like father, like son.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where were all the real scientists when they were developing this heliocentric system? Wasn't there anyone that was fighting it?
Well, have you ever considered that it could have been their hobby project? That they were handed like, hey, this is something interesting, like futurism thinking, and they just worked on it, and then like industrialists basically used their work for mind control purposes. I think a lot of it was established that way. Because a lot of these things are just based on natural conclusions based on presuppositions.
You know what I love though? My favorite part is the man himself tells you nobody in my field uses scientific method. And these guys will come in here and tell us, no, that's not what he really meant. What he really had meant is blah, blah, blah. Like, are you serious? This man himself tells you nobody in his field uses scientific method. So, who am I supposed to take your word for it, M. Scott Veitch? When you want to tell me I'm wrong and I used his quote out of context? Come on, man. Get a grip. He's telling you himself. Don't be mad at me.
Yeah,
don't be mad at us because we're pointing it out to you, bro. Right?
Context is summarized in the quote, chocolate. It's self-explanatory. He's talking and addressing directly the use of the scientific method. So there's no question about the context at all.
No. You guys are getting it all wrong. You are thinking about this way too much in actual speak. You know?
Oh, you mean the really is level?
That's right.
Yeah. That's where my brain operates. I don't operate in the fantasy second law of thermodynamics violation place that your father went to, M. Scott Veitch, and you think you're proud of that. Meanwhile, the guy's telling you we don't use scientific method, and you're like, nah, what he really meant? Nah, I'm good. I don't need you to translate English for me, my friend. Thanks.
Right.
Hey, Nathan.
Why would you take what he says literally when you can think exactly the opposite of it, which is more in political advantage of where you want to go? You know?
Indeed. Go ahead, Tenth
Nathan, I posted something in Master B. If you could post this from Andrew Thomas Young, and it's going to validate Arwen's point.
Invalidate or validate?
Validate. Arwen was spot on.
Okay, go ahead. It's on screen.
All right. Calculating atmospheric refraction. This is on his bottom last paragraph on the topic of refraction. All the discussion above, excuse me, deals with plane surfaces, period. But the Earth isn't flat! Exclamation point. Arwen said the key word, presupposition. They are told the Earth is a globe, and we're spinning all these different directions. So when they go to do their pseudoscience, they have that as the begging the question presupposition that they got to match. So here he is saying everything I've done is over a plane surface, but I've got to match it to the Earth not being flat. So Arvin nailed it.
Perfect.
Can I reiterate another quote by the same man?
If you can do
Because
it in 30
maybe
seconds.
you want to tell me.
Yes, but
maybe
do it
you want to
quickly.
tell me how I misquote this, right?
Go ahead.
Well, quote, usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. That is 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science.
Notice he uses
Unquote.
the word experiment,
Wow.
a very specific term in science.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's talking contextually about the scientific method when he uses the word experiment. This is a trained astrophysicist, so he knows what experiment is. It's contextual and specific. Last but by no means least, just because we're running out of live air. So any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
None whatsoever.
But can real quick, I know we're about to end, but can I point out one more thing?
Go ahead.
Look how he actually separates cosmology and science. Right? He starts the quote with "in science," blah blah blah, but then he says he turns it to "but in cosmology." Oh, so does that mean cosmology is not science? Well, thank you very much, Michio Kaku.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Exactly.
that.
I thought he was
Exactly.
brilliantly honest, really.
It is absolutely brilliantly honest, Darwin. You're not wrong. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, or premiering stream, live stream. Stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. But once again, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and smashed the super chat. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panel for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Be anywhere in a minute over. Not the end of the world.
Great show today.
Yeah, not exactly a short housekeeping session. Literally the entire hour dedicated to breaking down each of the housekeeping questions one by one.
It was great. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you got to be thorough with the cleaning.
I love the fact that I read out that quote and somebody got so triggered that he felt he had to message me and tell me how I took the quote out of context. Yeah, all right, buddy. Good try.
He also left a tell in there, did M. Scott Veach. What people call science. You've never done anything like what people would call science. Yet you pseudoscientists call bullshit and just so stories science all day long. But calling stuff science and it actually being the empirical method are two totally different things. Quite admirably distinguished by Michio Kaku when he distinguishes, as Chocolate pointed out at the end of the live show, between cosmology and, separately, science. Two separate things.
Do you remember when I told you about my schooling years when I was younger and my teacher was teaching at this one point the evolution theory, and I raised my hand and I asked them a bunch of questions, and I mean I'm like 14, 15 years old, so I'm not the brightest in the world at that age, but my questions were very simple and direct, and it flustered him to the point where he says, look, I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it, so stop asking me the questions, because I kept raising my hand and it was disturbing the flow of the class. And when Arvin said what he said is that they have a presupposition, and the leadership and science and whatever get together, they have to stick to the script. Even if they believe it or don't believe it, they have to stick to the script because that's what everyone else is teaching. Just like my teacher.
The same sort of situation I remember in a religious education class. So you come from one class where they're telling you about dinosaurs, you move into the religious education class and ask the question about dinosaurs, which didn't fit in with the current timeline being taught about the Christian faith and religious education. And I was kicked out of the class because you're not supposed to highlight contradictions within two different narratives that are separate.
Really? Wow.
That's what happened with me with gravity. I kept asking the teacher how I don't understand how people are sticking to a ball all around the ball, and she just kept saying gravity, and I was like, okay, great, but what does that mean? Like, can we get into that? And the teacher at one point said, "This is what's in the textbook, and you just need to know it for the test."
And when that
I was
little
like,
boy,
okay, I guess so.
and when that little boy grew up, he was on Flat Earth Debate saying, "Oh yeah, what's gravity?"
Right?
That was good, Chocolate. You're low.
Hey, Brian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, Nathan.
as a
Hey,
kid,
everyone.
what do you say afterwards? Like, it's in the textbook. Somebody obviously smarter than me has figured it out, and now I need to know it for the test. What do I say after that? To the teacher. Obviously, in my head, I'm like, still doesn't make sense, but whatever. I need to know it for the test, right? So I can get out of this class, right? And then years later, I'm over here like, hey, what's gravity? Nobody can tell me. Great.
Nathan, can I give an answer, or some kind of an answer to Neil's question about where was science when the globe was being brought into reality, well, into our reality, let's just say.
Well, they just presumably stuck the label over it, right? Oh, look, everyone appreciates that science is empirical. Let's just call this science and hope no one notices.
Yeah. History kind of supports that, to be honest, because there was no globes from the Greek times. The Greeks were great stonemasons, and they didn't make one globe. The oldest known globe was from 1492, the same year as Columbus supposedly discovered the Americas. And the thing about that is, is that it would make sense why somebody like Columbus at that time would have a leather globe. People who were seafaring, this is a theory I have, people who were seafaring at the time were educated people. People who were the captains of ships and stuff were educated. The rest of the people weren't educated. So you have a huge amount of the population of the world of the Western world that had no education. And yet people who were map makers and boat builders, engineers, people who had some kind of education, they could read and write and stuff like that. If you were on a ship and you're traveling from back in 1492, let's just say, you're traveling from Britain to America, you don't want to have your maps up on the deck. So if you need a reference to where you're going and what direction things are going, or where you are, then if you had a leather map that's based, a leather globe that has like some kind of a map onto it, something like that, even if it was just for just that trip or just for a coastline, then if you lost that, it's not the end of the world, because it's only just a leather thing with some kind of a reference on it. It's not a map. You couldn't have maps up on the deck of a ship. You have to have maps down below in the captain's quarters where they were safe and couldn't be damaged. Because without maps back then, there was nothing. They had no way of contacting the shore. They had no way of getting new maps. So I reckon the globe was very possibly just something that was used by seafarers as a reference while they're on the deck. And that over the course of time, it was adopted as an actual reality, because the people who didn't have education didn't know any better. You know, that's just a theory.
Interesting.
Funniest thing I heard in that regard is there was a pilot that I heard have an interview on Paul on the Plane, and he said that he actually took, and he's a flat earther, by the way, and then he said he took a globe on a flight with him and another pilot. They actually took a globe on a flight with him just to kind of, compare it to reality. And he says he laughed at how off it was when compared to his flight charts and the actual reality that he lives. And he just said it was like me and the guy were just laughing. No, obviously that's anecdotal type of evidence, whatever, hearsay, but I just thought it's kind of funny when somebody actually does take a globe into a cockpit and they end up just laughing at it. It's pretty funny.
Indeed.
Are we all on board with the idea of that the heliocentric religion is actually the one world religion?
I am. I agree with that.
Whole religion. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's always been the baseline mind control spell for governments, at least the Western style government.
Yeah, it's the governmental religion.
It's the presupposition to start the control with.
But to the normie, it's disguised as science.
Yeah, pseudoscience is the guise of religion that they needed to make people think it's just true, so it's never ever considered as being a religion.
Yep. Because when you tell a normie it's his religion, he fights you. And then you say, but look. And then you start pointing out the falsehoods. And then they still fight. I said, wait a minute, I just proved that you can't have gas pressure without a container. I just proved that you don't have the geometric horizon where it's supposed to be. Just proved that the airplane should take an hour and a half going from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA if the Earth was spinning towards it on the westerly direction. We saw the proof, and you're still going to hang on to this globe? And you say it's not a religion?
Yeah, when you get that sort of cognitive break with people, what I often hear them say is, no.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll say no. You get to that point that you've just made, and you say, well, if the Earth was turning underneath to give us this deviation, apparent deviation from the ground, then the Earth would be turning underneath the plane to make it seem like it's curving. Yes, I understand that. Yes, that's Coriolis effect. Right, but then a flight from Charlotte to LA would take an hour and a half. And it doesn't. It takes 4 to 4.5 hours. And their answer to that would be, no.
Yeah, pretty much.
The conservation of momentum. That's another one. That's part 2.
Or to rephrase it, it's just, when I'm saying no, what I mean by that is, you're just wrong. That's the implication by just saying no. No, you're just wrong. In other words, there is something to explain this. I don't know what it is yet, but ultimately you're wrong. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's
They got
exactly what
nothing
it
else.
is.
They got
Sorry.
nothing else to say because the argument that you gave is so strong, and it's now they're out of their league. They can't use the off-the-shelf arguments anymore because you did your homework, right? So I can't go to the off-the-shelf arguments. So I need to say no.
What drives me crazy is that this doesn't even have to be an argument. If it was something demonstrable, they would just demonstrate it. We would just see it, and we wouldn't have to talk about it. Right? We have to do all this talking, and then when we get to a point where we say, well, can you please demonstrate it? Nah, we just do more talking. It's like, what?
Or,
but chocolate, it's a deeper issue, and we've all experienced it. Go to someone in your mind, as I say the story. You will have several people pop up, but I'll use my story. I went to somebody I've known for 20 plus years. I said, hey, I've been researching this thing. I know it's controversial. I know it's conspiratorial. I know people who go here are looked upon as crazy. But after researching it, here's what I found out. And I started sharing some of these things. And sure enough, come to find out, cognitive dissonance, pride, everything else hit. And this person doesn't even want to talk to me about it. Now, I've known this person for over 20 years. We talk about everything under the sun, but not this. So I concluded it's this no that Nathan said, because they ran out of off-the-shelf arguments. They don't want to enter the arena with me. But they rather say, I'm crazy and stupid, I'll never believe another word 10th man says, than to investigate. But on any other subject, they will sit there for hours and talk to me. But not on this one.
Yeah, I see there are two main reasons behind that. Number one, people are it's very difficult for someone to come to the realization that most of their world paradigm has been a lie their entire life, right? The other thing is, who are you and why didn't I figure it out first? Right? Why are you telling me what this is about and I didn't know that? It can't be right if I didn't figure it out.
However,
You have to be wrong.
There's an upside to this, which is a lot of the people I know precisely what I do, but are very, very hesitant to talk about it with me. They'll mention in passing how things on YouTube, for example, as a way to skirt the issue. Now, those exact same people are more than willing to question me about the current state of affairs. And you go, yeah. So why would you approach me about this very openly when you're clearly being very distant to everybody else around you about this subject? You're scared of your own shadow, pretty much. But yet you'll approach me and talk about it quite openly and question me about my opinion and what's going on. Why would that be when you're so sceptical about the thing I generally do on my day-to-day business, if you like? So you think, okay, that's kind of telling. So today I asked a few people, well, what brings you to actually ask? And the answer was plain. I think what's going on now is nonsense. That was the answer I got. And I was like, it was quite uplifting. That's why I've been in a good mood for the whole show. Because I'm not what I'd consider a normie, who I vaguely know, like in passing, I happened to see in a supermarket and was told by the security guard to keep apart. And as we didn't, she approached me. This is all nonsense, isn't it? I'm like, wow, she didn't realise it, but she absolutely made my day. Because every time I go into that supermarket to buy milk, I'm confronted by normies, and it makes me depressed. Because I think, God, we're living in a terrible world. No one knows what's going on. And then one almost random, I know her very, very vaguely, I don't know her name, but she's like, hello, this is all nonsense, isn't it? Like, great. Humanity's not lost.
Yeah, I've had a few normies with that same reaction. They'll come up to me after this whole nonsense started and say, wow, what do you think about this? And I do the look around like, oh, you're asking me? Because 2 weeks ago I was the crazy flat earther, but now my opinion means something to you now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The look in her and a couple of other people's eyes have been a look of great intent. They're hanging on my every word. And I'm like, well, actually, I avoid talking about this subject and I'll give you more reasons why. And then they're still there with great intent. Yeah, but what do you actually think of, like, okay, you're trying to press this issue. Okay, fine, I'll give you my opinion, not that it's worth anything.
Yeah, when this started, I had one of my coworkers come up to me and say, you know what, even though I might not agree with you on the shape of the earth, I'm 100% with you on this media nonsense and all this lying crap. It's just full of shit. I completely have your back on that now. And I was like, wow, maybe this will wake people up. That's a good thing, man.
Well, I'll credit Thrice 8 Hermes. So he was recommended to me by John LeBon, and he's a very monotone, very depressing, calls himself a jester. And if you know what a jester is, it's like comedians tend to be depressed. Anyway, without going into too much detail, this dude, Thrice 8 Hermes, was the guy I got the analogy for the ratchet, but I only gave you half of his analogy. So I'll give you the other half now, 10th man, as it was you I gave it to. So do you remember me describing how the control system will be like a wrench that's on a ratchet? You tighten it, and then when you go back up, it seems to, or it looks like it's untightening. It clicks, but it hasn't moved an inch. It's still just as tight. And while the perceived untightening for the people around us has happened, everyone relaxes a little bit, only for it to be tightened up again. Well, when Thrice 8 Hermes gave that analogy, he described the ratchet in a slightly different way. He said it's like a magic ratchet, because what's happening to you general sheep normie is that tightening effect, yeah? But to others who are slightly more open-minded, it actually breaks the bolt, if you will. He didn't describe it this way. I'm just trying to simplify it for simplistic terms. It breaks the bolt so that the person who's watching the tightening suddenly it fractures, and it's actually becoming looser at the same time. So while it's, for me, it's akin to going out and saying, look at how everyone's just in line like sheep, and that could be a different Joe who isn't me, who isn't necessarily awake to any sort of deception around them, who suddenly goes, look at the world we live in. God, what a load of old nonsense. In other words, that ratchet stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They get out of the hamster wheel all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Because
they
it's
jump
been-
off the hamster wheel, yeah, and just look at the hamster wheel still turning and go, bloody hell, it's got a motor behind it.
I was going to comment on what Chocolate was saying. So the person who's honestly shared his feelings said, I may not agree with you on the nature of the Earth, but on this one, I'm with you. This is nonsense. Well, the only reason that even happened is because there's restrictions, government controls, some pain being felt. Maybe can't buy something every time he goes to the store, it's out of stock right away. And it's enough to get him to say that. Whereas when prior to this current situation, here's Chocolate saying pretty much the same thing in the sense of the nature of the Earth and showing all the proofs. But the proofs Chocolate showed didn't cause the pain. There wasn't going off the grocery shop, So this one is, and so they're all like, this is nonsense. But the other one, well, who cares? I'm still able to do what I want to do, and you're crazy because the Earth is round. They don't feel it. They need to. Some people need to feel the pain, I guess.
Exactly. So if you
But
try
they
to explain
will.
to somebody that there's been restrictions put in place because we're under a certain level of control, governmental control. Now, if you phrase it simplistically like that, most people are like, well, obviously, the government run the country. That's what running the country is. You go, well, no, there's more. It's more sinister than meets the eye. What seems benign is actually this ratchet being tightened and then never loosened again. For example, travel restrictions and being searched at airports, endless queues and being scanned and all that sort of stuff. Well, we seldom realise that that's one of those ratchet tightening experiences where the tightening happened, everyone's all nervous for a certain event that's happened in order for the ratchet to be tightened. But then a few months later, that doesn't untighten. It becomes the new norm. Well, what's happening around us now? Well, cast your eyes forward a couple of years when everyone's just doing it the same as they are now, and it's the new normal because the ratchet doesn't untighten. So what in the moment when everyone's scared, it very quickly normalizes again. Not that it untightens. When people say, "Well, when will things go back to normal?" No, normie, this is normal. Just get used to it. This is your new normal. Accept it. Now, for us, we were trying to explain to these people 6 months ago, the same people are coming up to us now, you and I, Chocolate, in this example, with a wide-eyed look, because they're seeing it overtly. Now, the fact that it has happened before, and has happened before, and has happened before, and we give them examples of it, I'm not going to name any, I don't want the video shut down, but by the same token, you'll tell them that, and they'll justify it. So what will become the new normal isn't people being worried about whatever the current bullshit is. It will be when they are at the point where they can justify it to people like us. In other words, 10 years from now, you describe a pandemic that was 10 years ago, and you say, well, as a result, this and this happened. And they go, nah, that's just normal. Right? That's normie behaviour. But for some, they snap and go, this isn't normal. Hang on a second. Look at all these people around me doing. I'll give you. This is the thing that pissed me off just before it was. I'm glad I spoke to that woman because if I hadn't, I'd have been pissed off all day because of this. I watch a program called Cletus McFarland. It's a car show. Does burnouts. Brilliant. Just guys being guys, lads. Wicked fun. Love it. Love the show. Now they've bought a track called. They've renamed this track that they've bought the Freedom Factory. Woohoo! America, freedom, burnouts, yay! Great. At the start of his video that I watched today, he explains, because he's got to explain, this video was shot a week ago, so we hadn't employed the social distancing rules that are currently in place and were for the last event that we held. And I'm like, okay, so let me get it straight. People come up to your event, you tell them to stand 6 feet apart, and then go, woohoo, freedom! She's like, what? This is the world we live in.
Cletus, love him. Yep. Cletus McFarland, love him.
Yeah, he's talking about freedom concept. Nevertheless, that concept, most people have a reasonable idea about what that means conceptually. And
right,
does that concept? Yeah, but does that concept ever conjure the idea of not getting close to other people? No, that's not freedom. No. But that's what he's talking about in his video while he talks about his events at the Freedom Factory. Like people don't know what's going on. The sheep literally will contradict their own, what they see as their goal in life. Freedom. Well, yeah, okay. Freedom! Stand in line, don't get too close, don't touch your face. You know what I mean? It's like,
so it's more like a presupposition of freedom, really, if you think about it.
It's just a concept, but my point is that concept is entirely contradicted and violated by the ideas that are currently being permeated in society, which will become the new norm. So when will normalcy resume, people ask? When you accept your current situation. That's when normalcy... No, I mean, when can I go back to the ball games? This is a John Le Bon example. It's like, well, then go and listen to the Masters and they'll tell you when you can go back to your ball games. Until then, don't touch your face.
Hold on a second.
Freedom
Let's pretend that
freedom is
Nathan
defined by
Oakley-
people.
Freedom to cooperate.
We're all free. Some are just more free than others.
Freedom's just another word
have a
for
scenario.
nothing left to lose. Yeah, go ahead, overtalk me.
Okay.
You're not drunk now, Arwen. You can't get away with it.
Hey,
not.
that's been our normal for a
can't
long time.
overtalk John.
Right?
It's literally, as soon as QE wants to get a word in edgeways, there's now 6 people talking. So, come on. Play fair.
I was
I have
done.
a
That's all I
scenario.
wanted to say. There we go again, man.
See, that normal will never change. That will always be here. That's one place we can see that never change.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, you just have to accept it, Kiwi. This is the new normal.
Yeah.
I'm now obligated to interrupt.
That doesn't apply. No, that doesn't apply to... Well, it doesn't apply to me. Maybe it applies to you, Arwen.
Oh, Arwen, you just poured salt on it. Thank you.
Sorry, John. Well, salt it has a disinfecting quality as well. So.
Oh, you did it out of love. I see.
Yes.
I see.
People define freedom by what they're allowed to do. And that's a massive contradiction if you think about it. You know,
Precisely.
the definition of
Brian,
freedom-
You officially have the freedom to move up and down in your house while we tell you to stay in your house.
that was perfect,
Isn't
Brian.
that-
Hold on, Chocolate. Can you just repeat that, Brian? That was perfect.
Yeah, all right. People define freedom with what they're allowed to do. And that's a massive contradiction.
Exactly.
I'm thinking now about Bill Hicks. Actually, he had this skit where we say you're free to do as we tell you. You're free, America. You're free to do as we tell you. Remember that?
Yeah, spot on. We're in a moment of quiet contemplation now about how perceivably crap the world could be taken as being.
Freedom itself is a bit of a contradiction. You have to be free to do something, free to fulfill a purpose, free to do something, fulfill a need. Even us as created creatures under God, God has to make those freedoms for us. So to a certain extent, we're going to have to serve and be bound by something. I guess the real freedom is freedom to fulfill our purpose or to reject it.
Or to put it another way, it's a
Everyone
concept.
is free to be tested by God.
Just a concept.
The only thing we're free to do is think. And most people don't give away that freedom. To
They
someone else.
don't. Hold on, did you say they don't give away that freedom? Yeah, they do.
No, they do. Most people
Oh.
do give away that freedom to someone else.
Yeah, I was going to say they absolutely give away freedom. Their mind is absolutely
be in
there
prison
to
and
be
be free.
exploited and controlled by their government. They're being told currently precisely what to do and what to think. overtly being told what to think.
Why am I thinking of Braveheart right now?
Because he screams freedom when they're torturing him. Another bit of subliminal programming. You want freedom? You can have it on your deathbed.
Oh, it's actually a classic story mode for a lot of movies like that. So yeah, they've kind of always conditioned that. If you want to be a hero, you gotta die. That's what they try to sneak in there in our story consciousness, in our archetypes. That's what they do.
Yeah, most people don't realise that the stories at the cinemas are also absolutely riddled and laced with multiple layers of programming towards the agenda of the controllers, or the government, if you will. Most people have no idea. Those stories are there to train us.
They know that when they were bringing in the kind of nonsense that's in here now, that people like us would not have been listened to 2 months ago or whatever. They know that. They knew that people like us were wasting our time trying to tell the general population anything. The general population will find that out in time. Some of them, maybe not all of them, some of them.
Oh, there are lots.
That they wouldn't have listened.
But they're a lot smarter though. The people who are running the show, so to speak, they knew that before we appreciated it today. So Chocolate and I have discussed it today. Well, the idea that people didn't realise that was the case before this happened is absurd. And I'll tell you for why. Given that that's happened on the street, literally, with one-on-one encounters, and there's 2 of us on the panel that can describe situations that in recent times, literally the last couple of days, that is to say that is the commonplace as far as I can tell. That's common. You turn to your conspiracy theorist or perceived conspiracy theorist when something like this happens and ask them questions. So, what do you know? When the magic trick was being spelled, we were shut down live. So, that's not a coincidence, is it? Because, yeah, we may have seen drastically increased numbers, and suddenly people are turning to us for an answer about a perceived conspiracy.
I'm meeting a good few normal people, as you would call them, normies. And I know from speaking with them, people I meet regular enough, I know from speaking with them, a good percentage of them, maybe 10%, maybe 8%. You can see that they're under pressure to keep taking this serious. They're really under pressure from what they're saying about it.
And it's relatively easy to apply pressure for the people who are applying it because it's done through fear. So it's the most effective way. And, you know, my discussion, or our discussion with Mark the other day, was my affirmation that this magic spell's worked. The trick's already done. This has already happened. It's all finished now, as far as I can tell. The effects, that's the new norm. That's what people are all concerned about. It's like, no, the route to getting us here is a done deal now. Not only is it a done deal, it's the people that are keeping those measures in place and will continue to do so. The magic trick's worked. So, you know, anybody who's trying to think, well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, no, the ratchet's tightened and this is your new norm. Just get used to it. You want to know why?
Yeah,
blame either the magician who cast the spell, who you have no idea who that is, or blame the mentality of the people. They've been manipulated, but ultimately they've still brought forth what is in effect now, and they will keep it here. So, you know, it's hard to say blame them. It's like when I was at the beginning of the show saying, well, I don't blame Mark for this. He's not my enemy. He's just being utilised to demonstrate that the magic tricks worked, and it has. Doesn't make Mark my enemy. He's being used. He doesn't know that, obviously, but that, you know, he's just like everyone else. They're all being manipulated and corralled like sheep, and that's been done now. They're all in the pen, and that's it now. Well, you know, what do you want? You've all followed the herd into the pen, and now you're all bowing about being in the pen. And what do you think the shepherd's going to do? Let you out again? You've got to be joking. You're all telling us about why you're in the pen amongst yourselves. We're in the pen because of this. When are you going to let us out the pen? I don't know, but we're definitely supposed to be in the pen, aren't we? Yeah, we're definitely supposed to be in the pen. There's a good reason for us being in the pen. Well, maybe it's not such a good reason. Meh. Yeah, that's what we've got now. Get used to your pen, normies.
You are killing me.
Say again?
I said you're killing me right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the most stupid thing I've seen in the past while has been people showing videos. I know that some of them aren't even current, of all this military hardware on trains and being shipped here and there. And people talk about they're going to bring in the military. No, they're not. For what? Everyone is already doing what they're told. They don't need anything like that.
Yeah.
It's done.
Oh, no, that's for us. No, that hasn't been for the normies. That's for us. That's for you and me. That's to scare the shit out of us.
Exactly.
We're going to get the butt of the gun into the stomach.
There's so many layers to the deception. Many of those layers are permeated through the conspiratorial channels. Because they can't just have the normie scared. They need everybody scared. So that's what they do. They permeate out the nonsense through the conspiratorial channels. And people parrot it. There are people from this panel, no mention of any names, who have done exactly that. They've permeated out the deception and scared people amongst our community. Now, I didn't want any part of that. So I didn't take part in that. Because I'm not a fearmonger. The only thing we've got to be worried about, this might sound cliche, is fear itself. If people weren't terrified of their own shadow right now, well, then we wouldn't be in our pens. And when people have asked me, well, are you in your pen? I have to be careful because I don't want these bloody thought police shopping me to the whatever perceived thought police. It's like, well, no, I haven't actually done anything because no one's told me to do anything. Why? Well, because I don't involve myself in social media or the television. So literally no one's told me to do anything. Have I done anything different? Well, a little bit, because other people have changed around me. But that's not me, and my happiness level hasn't decreased very much, I've got to be honest. A few little things have been a minor inconvenience, and that might piss people off in the audience. What's that? You're not deeply inconvenienced like this? But by what again? What, the thing that you're telling me about over and over again and shit scared of? Well, if it wasn't for you having this conversation with me, we'd be talking about how nice it is today and how fun my kids are looking while they're dancing around, oblivious to the whole thing, as happy as I am. But no, everyone wants to be terrified. People love it. They want the, what is it, cortisol, that chemical that flows through them. They want it. They lap it up. They want the adrenaline.
The adrenaline.
Yeah, cute phase respondents. Yeah, and I'm real scared of those National Guard convoys. I'm shaking uncontrollably. Why don't they roll on into the Bronx and let's see what happens?
Yeah.
Word up.
Yo, brother, you have to uphold the social distancing law. What did you say? What did you say?
You talking to me?
Yeah, they'll just go up and do what they do, like literally get in their face, you know, chest to chest. You want social distancing? You want social distancing?
It's a really fragmented sort of thought process at the moment. So I'll give you an example. I recommended a channel the other day, Mindfulness, Sean, who some of you might be familiar with. And what he's doing is he's highlighted a guy who's gone out to watch workers fitting a 5G tower on a Sunday. Now, the guy in the video is saying to the policeman who's been called because he's filming them, are you going to arrest them? They're working. This isn't needed work. Everyone's on lockdown and they're putting up a 5G tower. Now, on the one hand, you think to yourself, why are you now shopping these random dudes who are out doing work? They're actually doing stuff. Yeah, you could say it's argued that it's not, you know, selling groceries and keeping people fed, but ultimately they're just out doing work, right? So you suddenly have this conflict where even the guy who's conspiratorial about, in this case, 5G towers, wants to shop the workers to the policeman. So we're all fighting amongst ourselves. We're all self-policing. The guy's enforcing the regime of, well, you shouldn't be out doing it if everyone else is locked down. You should be locked down. But because he's got the cause of 5G, it's justified to shop random stranger to the policeman. You're like, well, ultimately, while you're fighting one battle, you're setting fire to another man's fort for his battle for freedom. Whatever that may be. You see what I mean? So he's like essentially becoming the thought police for one man's battle whilst fighting his own battle against 5G towers. And it kind of, I watched that video, and again, it was one of the first things I watched this morning. I'm like, this depresses me. You know, you're more than happy to enforce the lockdown and, you know, tell this guy that they shouldn't be working to emphasise your point that we're getting 5G towers that he doesn't want for all of his reasons, which may or may not be justified.
Well, maybe, yeah. You're totally right, but maybe in a way it is also to draw attention to the crowd. Like, look, this doesn't make any sense that they're allowed to do that to those that believe in Corona. You know, it's a matter of perspective at it.
Plus, I think
if he works, then I'll work. Then we'll all work. It'll be an anarchy. Let's go.
But that was kind of my attitude. Other than there's been new laws ushered in the last 8 or 9 days that can, you know, that can prevent that from happening. The whole point of social distancing at the ground level is to stop people getting together and talking and having groups or riots. You know, there's it's a multifaceted. There's more than one layer to this, and the intricacies mean that the people themselves are the ones that enforce this. In other words, the script's been written, the act has been played out, and now everyone else is just parroting off the same script, the general public, that is. And that script is now is self-prophesizing. It will continue because the script is being read by the very people that are under their own tyranny, if you want to look at it that way. You know, the fact that the script was written, well, we don't know who the script writer is.
The guy, the video you're talking about. Why is I'm echoing here? Hello?
Oh, you can have the last word, 10th man, then I'm going to round out.
All right,
no, don't round out.
Okay.
All right. The video I haven't seen that you...
Hold on. Go ahead, 10th man.
My goodness. All right. The video you just referenced could also have another interpretation. I haven't seen it yet, though, so I must admit to that. The guy could be clever enough to say, okay, you got this rule saying we all got to stay in and only essential things could happen. So why is this guy here? Why aren't you enforcing your rules? So if he approaches 5G directly, he doesn't have much ground to stand on. But if he approaches the new rule, but he also doesn't like 5G, rather than putting 5G in the forefront, he puts the rule in the forefront and saying, why is this possible? How come he's allowed to work and I'm not? Just to see the contrast. Okay,
he did.
So he could be doing...
To his credit, he did do that.
Okay. All right, so he did that. So now on that and the different layers, I'm totally tracking with you because there's so many types of people and different mentalities that this superb virus plan that they did, they had think tanks or whatever, and they figured it all out. So now you've got at the same time Bill Gates on national TV here in the U.S. talking about vaccinating everybody and doing some kind of tracking system. Well, that doesn't help the cause. The conspiracy guys get their blood level going up when they hear that stuff, right? So if it's just normal, then why is Bill Gates saying this? Then this other guy steps up and says, I think everybody has to wear some kind of patch, you know, that you got the shot, the vaccinations. And it has to be clearly seen by people that you have this patch. So this takes me back to World War II, where the Jews had to wear a patch. So they're not doing anything good by doing, but they're doing it on purpose to cause it all. So I'm totally tracking with you to affect the different peoples.
10th man, you don't even know. I've been handed working papers so that when the cops stop me and say, hey, why are you on the street, citizen? I can say, look, Ossifer, I have my papers. I'm clear to work. Straight Gestapo tactics, bro. Welcome to Nazi Germany.
Yeah, bitte.
Hold on, just 1 second. You're only going to get
I'm
the
working
audio.
on a 5G tower.
Just 1
Same
second.
same here. Got my papers as well.
Just 1 second. I'm going to play out Sean's a bit.
I'm working on a Sunday morning in our town then. Nobody else can. And the shops are open. And you're down here fitting this. Hey? Good face. Alright, mate. Alright, mate.
Wait, please.
Yeah, don't worry, I will. If I get any closer, mate, I won't be able to help myself, I can tell you. Any of you. Take it off, mate. Show your face, the only one I haven't got. 40,000 views yesterday. They're burning them down. They're burning them down. Birmingham, UK. My face. Do you want to have a little word? Excuse me? Excuse me, police? There's a crime being committed here. There's a crime being committed here. What, you're not going to do anything? Crime being... Oh, he's got a mask on today. Too late, mate. 40,000 people have seen your face. Why don't you? You were over there just now. You've come over here. Go back over there. Well, you were over there just now, alright?
Nice hugs, by the way.
Nice what? Nice hugs, yeah. They'll feel good when they slapped it on the side of your head in a minute. I can threaten you all I like. Can you? Stay where you are.
Don't threaten me.
You get closer to me, mate, right? Yeah? Yeah? You come within 6 feet of me, mate, right?
Yeah.
I have loads, mate. You see, find out. Come here. Break the law. You break the law and I will break the law.
What do you mean?
You heard? Oh, John, you come within 6 feet. Both of you. Both of you. Both of you. Police are there.
I think you get the general idea.
That was brilliant.
But he's saying the police are over there, don't come within 6 feet.
But next time you play it, can you have a translator?
Anyway, you get
Sorry.
You get the general idea.
It's a demonstration of the problem's culmination, as Nathan said. This is a new normal adaptation of the Matrix, because even within the Matrix movie, the concept of Neo, the concept of the war, the concept of the battle was all part of the system control. So here we have a guy confronting another guy saying, you break the law and I'll break the law. An ordinance to stay away from people by 6 feet is not in any way, shape, or form capable of being a law or a crime, because there's no damaged party. So he's already conceded system of control in his speech and in his mind. And this is the problem. We've all been so indoctrinated, we don't even realize how indoctrinated we are in so many facets. We've not come to fruition yet in our awakening.
That was an absolutely beautiful and eloquent end to the show. Thank you very much for that summary, whoever that was. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream 4. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!